Hi, so we're actually going to start talking about CSS now. And CSS, if you remember, is pretty much like the skin. So let's get rid of that. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Okay, it's the skin. So I just want to put skin. So remember, HTML was bones. CSS is like the skin, gives it some aesthetics, the way it looks, the color of it, things of that nature. And JavaScript was like the muscles. Okay, so we've been talking about the bones. Now we're going to talk about the skin. So one of the important principles discussed in an HTML does not define how a document should be displayed. It only displays the document structure and the content, again, the bones. So the appearance of the page is determined by one or more style sheets written in the Cascading Style Sheets language. So I'm going to pause this for a second, pull something up. Okay, I'm back. So it talks about cascading style sheets. So right here, I have one of our previous exercises that we did. I still have it up. And you'll notice like in the head, so look where we're at, we're right below the closing head. You'll see a link referring to a style sheet. There's a couple of them. And you can have multiple links. But you see in the relationships, it says it's a style sheet. So if we actually pulled up that style sheet, which I'm not going to right now, you can see how they characterize some of the aesthetics of a particular web page. So that's what they mean. That's one way to link a style sheet. Yeah, that's one way to provide some styling into it. That's how you link a style sheet, but that's one way of providing styling. Okay, so the CSS specifics are maintained by the W3C that defines the standards for HTML. So as with HTML, the CSS language has gone through several versions, and right now we're on CSS 3. CSS 3 is not based on any single specification, but rather is built upon several modules, where each module is focused on a separate design topic. At the time of the writing, there are over 50 CSS 3 modules, and each module experiencing a different level of browser support. So remember where you can go to see what browser supports what is Can I Use. Go ahead and make this bigger so we can see that. We'll go to MindTap, and I'm going to go ahead and make a note of here. Let's see, W3C. Focus on this. At the time, there are over 50 CS3 models, with each module experiencing a different type of browser support. So if I was a student learning this, I would make a note, like right there, I would highlight that. And then I would also make a note here, add note. Go to www.caniuse.com to see what is supported by the various browsers and save. So in these tutorials, you'll mainly focus on CSS features that have near universal support among current browsers. However, you'll also examine workarounds to support older browsers and to study ways to accommodate the difference between browsers and how they implement CSS strategies. I apologize, I'm still having trouble enunciating words. Found out I have to get all 4 of my wisdom teeth pulled out, and where I have TMJ, it's just kind of making things a little difficult to speak. So I apologize for that. Just have to bear with me on this. Okay, going on. So there's types of style sheets. A website's design is usually not the product of a single style sheet. It is a combination of styles starting from the browser style sheet and then superseded by the user-defined style sheet, external style sheets, and embedded style sheets, concluding with inline styles. So here it talks about a hierarchy. And you can see there's different kind of style sheets. The ones that I've worked with the most are inline, embedded, external, and I'm not wholly 100% what these two are referring to. It's probably just something I'm not familiar with the terminology, but let me go ahead and get this back over here. This right here is an example of an external styles because it's going to an external. It's not in the same document. It is going to this particular file. So if it was an internal, it would be on the same document. If it was an inline, it would be on the same line. So those are some of the differences on those different kinds of styles. And the order that they go by, like the browser will look, first it'll look on the external, and then if the, to see and apply that style. And if there's something on the internal, and that supersedes the external, it'll apply that style. And if there's something that's inline that supersedes the other two, it'll apply that style. So it'll apply the style that is closest to the element that it's supposed to affect. Okay, so the first styles to be processed are the browser styles and user agent styles, which are styles built into the browser itself. Okay. In the absence of competing styles from other style sheets, a browser style is one applied to the web page. So I guess those are just the specifics based on the browser. I would think most of them are universal. I've not really noticed a distinct difference between one from another, but maybe there is. The next styles to be processed are the user-defined styles, which are styles defined by the user based on the settings he or she makes in configuring the browser. Okay, so that can be kind of, some of you guys notice go to a dark theme or have a larger font size. So that's what you can define in yourself. You guys do dark themes, changing the font size, whatever. Those are the things that you can define the style on. So user-defined styles are superseded by external styles, which are an example of this right here. That's external because it's linking to another sheet. Which are the styles that are the website author creates and places within a CSS file and links to the page. You used external style sheets in the last tutorial when you linked the curbside tie website to a collection of CSS files. So as you saw in the tutorial, multiple documents can access the same style sheets, which make it easier to apply a common design to an entire website. So they had multiple sheets going to these particular style sheets, and which it makes things a lot better, easier, provides uniformity. Yeah. Everything's pretty uniform, and how it just makes it neater. I'm going to pause this for a second here. Hold on. Okay, so in this external style sheet, okay, if you have this particular file open, or any of the ones that we've also used, you'll be able to see this CT underscore layout 2, and you can click on it. You can click on any of them. You can click on this one, anything that has a .css, you can click on it. So you can control click. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. So this is CSS. This is where you put the styles. And you'll notice some things that are probably familiar, like HTML. This is where we declare what font size. Our font size is going to be 14 pixels. This is where we declare images, objects, embeds, and videos are going to have a max width of 100%. This is where we declare the body. Remember the body tags, the second part of a HTML document. We're going to say it's going to have a margin left of auto, right of auto, a width of 81.9. So we can declare whatever we want. We can make the, like I said, the styling to be uniform across all the web pages. So every HTML page can go to the same kind of CSS page, so it all looks the same. Now, that does not mean that all of this stuff will be reflected on this HTML page. There may be stuff on these right here that's not on here just because it's not been utilized, and that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down again and try this again. Okay. So above the external styles in the hierarchy of style sheets are embedded styles, which are the styles added to the head of an HTML document. Embedded styles only apply to the HTML document in which they are created, and they are not accessible to other documents in the website. But they do override any styles in an external style sheet. So if I was a student, I'd be highlighting other stuff, but this is the one that caught my eye. So embedded styles would be, which are styles added to the head of an HTML document. So I would highlight that if I was a student. Did I highlight? Why didn't I highlight? Highlight. Why is it being slow? There we go. Okay. And I would also highlight embedded styles only apply to the HTML document which they are created and are not accessible to other documents in the website. And I would maybe even make that a different color, so I don't think it's the same kind of, thing. And they do override an external style sheet. Okay, so that's something that I would put in there as highlights and then just reinforce with actual manual note taking. So finally, at the highest order of the precedence are inline styles, which are added as element attributes within an HTML document and thus apply to that element alone. Embedded styles and inline styles are not considered best practice, and their use should be avoided where they violate the basic tenets of HTML. Yeah, what that said. Which is that HTML should only describe the content and structure of the document, and that design styles should be placed outside of the HTML code. Best practices, yeah, that's what you should aim for. But you don't always do it. That's just the nature of it. The overall design of a web page is based on a combination of the styles from these different sources. So some of the styles might originate from the browser style sheet, while others may be defined in an external style sheet or an embedded style sheet. Part of the challenge of CSS is determining how styles from these different style sheets interact to determine the page's final appearances. I want to highlight that. And because I just want to reinforce this. The overall design of a web page is based on a combination of styles from these different sources. So you have the inline styles, embedded styles, external styles, user-defined styles, and browser styles. Some of these styles might originate from the browser style sheet, while others will be defined in an external style sheet or embedded style sheet. But part of the challenge of CSS is determining how styles from these different style sheets interact. So sometimes you'll come across an issue where one browser will show something one way and another browser will show a completely different way. So that's why you just need to be sure that you are testing it in all the browsers and making sure it's having the effect that you want it to have in each particular browser. You know, some people just kind of focus on Firefox, Chrome, and Edge. Some go a little bit wider in it. Some go to make sure that the mobile devices are, you know, good. So just keep in mind, there's multiple things to take in consideration, and you just try to do the best that you can with that. Okay, so let's go to the next page. Okay, so we're going to do viewing a page using different style sheets. So I am going to go ahead and pause it right here and get set up. Okay, I'm back. I'm going to go ahead and just show how I would do this. Get rid of this down here on the bottom. So if I was you, and see if this would work, and I have to open up some files, you guys should already have them because we already downloaded them. But if I hadn't done it yet, and we hadn't done it yet, I think I would see if I can open up a duplicate tab without messing me up. So to open up a duplicate tab, you would right click on the tab and click duplicate. And let's see if this will work. Sometimes stuff like this works and sometimes not. So far, so good. So if I were you, maybe it's not so far so good. Oh, okay. It's just taking me, because I duplicated this tab, it's taking me right to it. I don't want to go right to it. So I want to exit that, because what I wanted to do was download these files. So what I would probably do if I were you and trying to download files, which you already did, but just want to share this with you guys anyways, is download your data files. I still have this other tab open. That tab's still open as far as I know. I didn't mess it up. So I would download the data files. Student companion site. Yes, we want to load unsaved scripts. And we do this thing again. And just keep doing this thing. We click student companion site. Yes, I know it's unsecure. We're going to go to data sets. We're going to go to student data files. And it's going to download as a zip. It should take less time than that. I want to pause this while that's still taking time. Okay, I'm back. I don't know. I was downloading the zip drive and it was taking forever since I already did the other day. I'm not going to go through the whole process again. And we did it in class. But anyways, so that's what I would do. I would open up another tab, download the files, so you can keep where you're at. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that tab just to make things neater. So I'm up here in my File Explorer, and one of the things that I had you guys do was separate the HTML files, folders from the JavaScript ones. I'm going to go ahead and move that. Control X to clean up that. So I only have the files for HTML in here. Okay. So user editor, open up the TSS home text.html. So we're in the HTML02 tutorial folder. So let's open that up. HTML02 tutorial. And we're looking for the TSS underscore home text. Okay, we're looking for that one. So if you have your preview pane on, you'll be able to see this. If you don't have it on, you don't see that, that's fine one way or the other. We're going to open up in VS Code. Looks like this is default to go to Edge. I do not want that, but I'm just going to open up into code. So right click, open with VS Code. Okay. And I want to go ahead and clean this up a little bit from the last video I did. or from the last thing I did. Okay. So I got that cleaned up a little bit. Just have the one tab. So we're going to do like we did the other day with JavaScript, enter our name and date, which is 8/28/19. And we're going to rename it, I'm assuming, to this. Oh, I'm in the wrong, shoot, I'm in the wrong one. No, I don't want to save it. Darn it. Okay, let's try this again. Home. That's the one we want. Right click. Open with VS Code. Name. Today's date. And yes, this is what we want to rename it to. So I'm just going to copy that. Control C. File. Save as. Control. Make sure I'm in the right one. So I'm in HTML02 tutorial. And just going to copy, or I already copied it, paste it over on top and hit save. Okay, and now it should say tss_home.html. So take some time to scroll through the document to become familiar with its content and structure. So I'm going to hit Alt-Z to put my word wrap on, just so I can see what I'm doing here. So we're going to scroll through, and then, okay, we're going to open up in the browser. So we got our normal stuff up on the top, block type, HTML head. These are comments. We got our Unicode type, keywords, all that good stuff. So, and we got an image file. And we got the alt, which, remember, if we didn't have that image file, that if it was not directly linked, or we cannot, if the browser could not find that image file, it would display this instead. We got some navigation links. So, okay, let's go ahead and Control S to save it. And let's go into our folder again. And I'm going to turn off that pane just so I can see that better. And what I usually do is on the date modified, I hit that. So the one that's been modified most recently, like a couple of minutes ago, comes up to the top. It just makes it easier to find. So right click, try that again. Right click, open with Chrome. And you can see this is the web page. So this is the web page that we just renamed, TSS_home. And you got the image, and we got all that stuff, all those links, and so on and so forth. So we have this image up here. And let's see, let's go back in here. So, okay. Because we downloaded the documents, it knows where to find it. It knows where to find this image, right? Which I'm assuming this is right here. Let's say that, let's just change the name of the image file just so it won't find it. The browser cannot find, there is no file named TSS_log. Okay, so we're going to hit save, Control S, refresh it. And you see that image is gone. And it just says to try and succeed sports, which was the alt text that was right here. And when we put that O back, you know, to the proper name of the file, and refresh it, and it's back. Okay, so what else were we supposed to do with this? Okay, So the browser style sheet applies a few specific styles to the page, including adding solid circles to the navigation list items as well. Let's go ahead and move this around a little bit so we can see. So I'm going to move this window, this tab, into a separate window. To do that, I left click and just use my mouse pad to drag it. Then I use the Windows button, which is between the FN and the Alt. I'll hold on to that Windows button and hit the right arrow, and it moves it to the right. And I click on this one because this is what I want to read. So it talks about some of the browser style sheet. Applies a few specific styles to the page. So including adding solid circles to the navigation list item. See right here? As well as displaying hypertext in blue, headings in a large bold font, and strong text in the bold font. So if we look in the code, let's look in the code again. I'll move this. I don't know how I want to do this. This is, yes, put over there. So let's look at the word links. Links are in H1, right? Now we didn't really talk about the nav list yesterday. It was a fourth type of list. It's just one of those things you'll use it and you'll figure it out. You'll just discover there's new elements and there's new tags that there's no way to cover them all in class. So anyways, okay, so H1 has links, right? And like we've been playing with H1, I think since day one. So it's bold, it's a little bit bigger font size and stuff. And we got the UL, which means it's an unordered list. And as we saw the other day, if we use UL for unordered list, it has these little bullet points, okay? We have the LI, the opening LI, and the closing LI for each of the anchors, the anchor tags, which are these little A's. And because we're doing a list. See, this is a list format. So these A's are the little anchor tags, and the href is where we're telling it to go to, like the ref. I forgot what H stands for, but we're referring to this. So what we would do when somebody clicks on, say, and this is the content that we actually see in here, right? This is home. This is home. Same thing with running, cycling, running, cycling. So what will happen is if we click on home, okay, it's taking us to a home page, which is this. Let's try another one. Run. If we click on running, it's not found. So I'm assuming it's not properly linked. Swimming. Okay. If that was properly set up, then it would take us to that particular page. So whenever you have a page going to a website and has hyperlinks, that's how that works. It would tell us to go to the other page. But we're still early in this practice, so evidently it's not set up. Okay, moving on. This one should work. Looks like it's an actual other website. So for Strava, let's see where that is. Strava right here. Let's see if that works. Yes. Okay. So that's actually an external website. See what this right here is, where the ones that wasn't working, like the home and the running and the cycling and swimming and whatnot, those are like this Try and Succeed Sports company. They made it. It's internal. It's in their same folder. Okay, it's not an external website. It's not going to somebody else's website, which you can see these are http www.active.com. That's going to somebody else's website. That's an external website. This is saying these are within our same folders. It's just, like I said, it's kind of early in this practice, so maybe it's not linked up yet. My dog's barking again. So anyway, so that's a little bit of a difference on that. And you can see this is how the browser set it by default, I'm assuming, according to the book. Okay, so the browser style sheet applies a few specific styles to the page. So like solid circles to the navigation list items, as well as displaying hypertext in the blue font and strong text in a bold font. So, however, the page layout is difficult to read. Allison has an external style sheet containing styles that will present this page in a more pleasing 3-column layout. So we're going to link this page now to her style sheet file and then reload the document in your browser to view the impact on the page's appearance. I got to take a break talking for a little bit. I'll be back. I'll pause this. Okay, I'm back. Okay, where were we? So browser can make an effect onto the styles appearance as well. I had to open up in that tab. Okay, I remember now. Sorry. So to change layout of the TSS homepage, so return to the TSS home HTML file in your HTML editor and add the following link to the head section directly after the title element. So we are going to return to the TSS home file. We want to go ahead, hit Windows and the left arrow to take that over to the left side. Going to open up my VS Code and TSS home, and add the following link element to the head section directly after the title element. Just going to scroll up a little bit. So here's the head, closing head rather, and here's the title. So we would do this, just like it says right here. TSS, sorry, not that. Out.css, relationship, and style sheet. I'll be 100% honest with you. I can't tell you the number of times I have to Google how to do this because this word or this word will totally mess me up. And it doesn't matter for whatever reason how many times I keep doing it. If it's been too long, it's been like a couple weeks since I've done something like this, I have to look it up. And that's just, it's one of the stupid little things that you have to look up because for some reason it will not sink in your head. And that's okay. Okay, so anyway, so we got that in there. Highlights the newly added code, figure 2.3. So again, I mentioned this earlier, this is the relationship. And this is where the, let's see. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So this is the style sheet, the relationship, and then this is the TSS layout, CSS, that's the name of the file. I want to open up VS Code. We're going to do something in VS Code so you can see everything. So if you go hover over to the left-hand side, you see Explore. And the only thing we really see is that, unless you've already done what I'm getting ready to do. But there's a folder because remember all those other files in it, and this is where all this stuff is coming from. We can click Open Folder, and we see it's an HTML02 tutorial, and click Select Folder. Where'd I go? I think that was it, wasn't it? Yes, okay. So these are the files. These are all the files that you see in here. The PNG file, TSS logo, PNG, where is it? There's the PNG file, the bike.html. Oh, it looks like we're probably renaming that. Go away, don't want to see you. So those are your other files that you'll be linking to or renaming so they'll actually work. And you can open those. You can, if you want to see what that logo looks like, you can open it up and then there it is. If you want to see what the CSS looks like, you can open up the files and see what that is. Want to see what that image looks like? There you go. So these are the files. So whenever you open up a single file, the whole folder won't open up. You have to go in there and say to open up the folder so you can see all the individual files. Okay, so finish that. Going back to this. So, and then you can close this so it gets out of your way. Okay, so save the changes, and then we're going to reopen it. So save it, Control S, and then refresh. And see, does not look better. It's already looking better. And there you go. Okay, that's because what we linked up as the style. Okay. So the TSS_layout CSS file controls the placement of the page elements, but not their appearance. So the colors, fonts, and other design styles are still based on the browser style sheet. So you can have, like this one specifically says layout, and hold on, I gotta go for a second. I'm having trouble speaking again. Okay, so I was talking about layout, and so you can have one CSS that just talks about layout. You can have another CSS that talks about the colors, and you can have another CSS that talks about fonts. You can do for whatever works for you and your organization and whatever your preferences are. You can have them all on one CSS. That can get rather long, so depending on how big and how much you're doing, that may not be ideal, but you could. So you can text styles, or styles, layout. What else do they have in here? Layout, we already did layout. I think that's it. Okay, so you can have multiple CSS to link to, and just have each CSS style sheet to be related to specifically one component, like the layout, the typography, the color, whatever. Okay, so let's go on. Was that the end of that page? Yes, okay, let's go on. So exploring style rules. If the element is the building block, if the element tag is the building block of the HTML file, then the style rule, which defines the styles applied to an element or group of elements, is the building block of the CSS style sheet. So the style rules, okay. Sometimes you kind of read stuff and you're like, what did I just read? That was that moment right there. Okay, so we have a selector. So let's open up a style sheet. I can just click on this right here, and it'll take me to that style sheet. If you guys can't see what I'm doing, but if you hover over it, you can see it says control click, so control click. So let's go over the style sheet a little bit. So we have the selector. You can see selector, and let's look at this first one. Is the body, right? We're giving it a margin of 0 in auto, which I think this is, if I remember correctly, top and bottom, and this is left and right. Like this is the margin from the top and the bottom of the page, and this is the margin from the left and the right of the page. The width is 100%. Max width is, we don't want it to go over 1020 pixels. Man width, we don't want it to go skinnier than 640 pixels. So let's stop right there and play with that a little bit. So I am going to move things around so we can see what we're doing. Okay. That's not quite what I want it to do. Give me a second here. Son of a gun. Okay. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So we got width 100%. Let's change this max width to, I don't know, say 100. And then hit refresh. Okay. You can see it got skinnier, right? And that's the body. Okay, so let's go back and undo that so you can see the difference. Control Z will undo what you just did. Control S will save it. I hit Alt Tab to just go back and forth between tabs quickly and refresh it. And the width of this is what it was originally. So you can see how making any kind of edits, like we said, we don't want it any wider than 100 pixels. And that's what happens. I'm going to undo that, Control Z, save it. So let's refresh this again. Okay, sorry, I forgot what I was doing. And I am going to do this as a split screen. I think that button does it. Yeah, just so you can see, I'm going to get rid of this. So we see TSS layout.css and the home HTML page. So what we did just now is make some edits to the body. You know, we changed that from 1020 pixels to 100 pixels, and we saw what it did. So why did it only affect the center portion and not the stuff on the left or the right hand side? So let's see what's actually in the body. Okay, so this is under a navigation. It's actually under nav, and then it's under UL. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. And this is under article, and I think that's about TSS, yes, about TSS. Okay. And then there's content within it and stuff, and there's an aside, which should be, yep. So that's the aside. So that's under an element called aside. So it's still part of body because that's one of the other, you know, if it's not part of the head, it's part of the body, right? But it has its own elements. It's nested. Let's go on down a little bit more. Okay, and then there's the footer, and then there's the closing body. So what this did was it only affected this portion here, right? Okay. Well, the CSS can also be nested. So we have a body, so it's got to be within the body tag, okay? But it's also saying it's also got to be in the header tag, and then this is what we're going to apply, okay? So this body header, we do what's in here. This is the styling. This is what we're telling the browser. If it's body, then nav, which is what this was, body, then nav, we do the styling. So that's why those were not affected whenever we changed this, is because the hierarchy had another little layer to it. You know, it's like, you know, because we started with this, and when the browser reads it, it starts from top to bottom. So it's like, okay, it assumes everything's in the body, right? And it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is body, then header. We got something special for that. Okay, then we got to apply that something special for that. Then it starts going down, oh, there's something special for body and nav. We got to do something special for whenever we see the nav inside the body. And same thing with the article and the aside. So whenever we got to the point of article, let's go ahead and get to that point. Article right here. Okay. It's saying that we are doing it about TSS. It's got an ID. We haven't talked about that yet. But it's got the body. And then it's saying it's floating to the right. It's a width of 40%. And the margin is 100 pixels by 10 pixels by 10 pixels. So let's see. I want to hide some of this stuff so we can kind of just do a side-by-side comparison. So what I'm doing right here, as you see, you have all this other stuff, and I want to do a side-by-side, so to speak. So if you see those little arrows, you can click on that and kind of have a closer view without having to copy and paste. So in the body, if it's a part of the body, we want the margin to be 0 in auto, and the width to be 100%, the max width 1020, min width 640. But on the float, we want it to float to the right, which it should be. Take in consideration there's comments right there. Width should be 40%, which it may be, which I assume it is anyways. Margin, it should be 0 on the top, 0 on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 10 pixels on the left. So this is top, right, bottom, left. That's just the order that those are read. Okay, so let's see. We got this going on. Let's see what would happen if we change something. And some things may not have an effect just because there's other parameters that are keeping it, how it is. Let's say if we change this margin on the left, okay, to 100 pixels. What would happen? Nothing that I saw. Again, that might be something because, other things are keeping it in check. Like there's only so much room between links and comments. Let's see, floating to the right. Let's see if we just commented that out by hitting Control / save. Okay, that did do something. So the content is no longer floating to the right because it's got that image. Okay, so we can undo that by hitting Control Z. And let's see. So you can see how the CSS is nested a little bit. It's not too deep, thankfully. I don't like it when things get nested too deep because it can be really confusing, in my personal opinion anyways. Okay, so let's kind of go on to what else we were supposed to be talking about here. We kind of went off into the weeds a little bit. I apologize, which I guess is an advantage of doing video. You guys can fast forward it. Okay, so Selector identifies an element or a group of elements within the document. Try and get this situated so I want. How do I do this? Let's just close that. Okay. Selector identifies an element or group of elements within the document of the property value. Pairs specify the style properties and their values apply to that element or elements. So for example, the following style rule has a selector H1 to match all H1 elements in the document and property values, pairs of color. So H1, is there an H1 in here? Probably not because that's a layout thing, and not because this is a layout CSS and that's a styling thing. Selectors can also be entered as a comma-separated list in the value in the following style rule that displays both H1 and H2 headings in red. So you can see that as an example. You can do just H1, you want it to be the color red, and you want it to be in the center. Or if you want to say, hey, I want both H1 and H2 to be red and center if you want it. Like HTML, CSS ignores the use of white space. So you can make it all in one line if that's what floats your boat. That's not my preference and prefer if you guys didn't do that. But if you really like it, I'm not going to hold it against you. Writing a style rule on a single line saves space, but entering each style property on a separate line often makes your code easier to read and edit. You will see both approaches used in the CSS files you encounter on the web. I'll take a break here for a second again. I apologize. Okay. In addition to the W3 supported style properties, most browsers supply their own extended library of style properties known as browser extensions. Many of these styles that become part of W3 spec start a browser extension, and for older browser versions, sometimes the only way to support a particular CSS feature is through a browser extension tailored to a particular browser. So you can see the browser extensions that are used for different kinds of browsers. I haven't even heard that one. Make this bigger. Okay, so for Mozilla, which is Firefox browser, you can do the Moz. Try yeah, IE is MS. Opera, Nintendo Wii browser. I didn't even think about that one. It's O, and then Chrome, and all of that is WebKit. For example, and you'll see that here in a second, I'm assuming. For example, one of the more recent style features added to CSS3 is the layout style to display content in separate columns. The number of columns is indicated using the column count property. Okay. To apply this style in a way that supports both older and current browsers, you can include the browser extensions first followed by the most current CSS specs. And general browsers process style properties in the order they're listed, ignoring those properties that don't recognize or support. So you always want the most current specs listed last. Okay, so let's go on a little bit. There's an easier way to do this. I don't think they addressed it in here. Let me pause this while I recall how to do that. Okay, I'm back. So what I had to try to remember how to do, we talked about when we first downloaded VS Code, we talked about how there's extensions. There's all kinds of extensions, and the purpose of it is just to make your life easier. Well, we're going to go ahead and install one of those extensions. I already had mine installed, but we're going to go through that. So the way I found it, just going to go straight from beginning to end. I knew something existed. I just couldn't exactly remember what it was or how to do it. All right, so I couldn't remember how to explain it. So these are vendor prefixes for browser extensions. So I couldn't remember how to do it, so I just Googled adding vendor prefixes to VS Code because I knew there was something. And I clicked on both of these. I ended up going with this one. And so Autoprefixer, and then you can install it. And what's really nice, I like what VS Code does with their extensions, is you don't want to install it from here, but it tells you how it works, right? So it talks about how to install, and you press F1 to run the command. Okay. So it would support CSS, lessons, SCSS. CSS is what we're concerned about. So it gives you some other information about it. You can read it if you want. Okay, so the way to install, so I already have mine installed, but if I didn't, let's see. I'll go ahead and uninstall it. All right. So pretend that button's not there. So I have Autoprefixer, and the way I found it, let's go ahead and straight from the beginning. I click on the extensions little square doohickey. Click on that, and then I'm looking up what Google told me to look up, Autoprefixer. Right? And then I am going to click install and give it a minute or two. Make this a little bit smaller. And it shows you previews of how it works. You can donate if you want to donate. Gives you instructions. Same thing we saw on the other screen, pretty much. So give it a minute or two to install. I'm going to pause this video because it's taking more than a minute. Fine, which one do I in? That one. Okay, I'm back. So after this is done downloading, which it is now, or installing rather, and it will look like this, and I don't want to disable it, obviously, and I don't want to uninstall it, obviously, so it's enabled globally. Okay, so we can see the shortcuts for changes. Keyboard shortcuts, create a new rule in File, Preferences, Keyboards. We're not doing that. Yeah, okay, sorry. Need to scroll to the top. Okay, so there's a little preview of how it works. Donate if you want. Usage. Press F1. Okay, to run the command named Autofile or Autoprefixer CSS, which is this. Okay, let's go ahead and close that out. Close that out. And get back to over here. And hopefully this should work. Hold on. F1. Oh, shoot. Okay. So a little FYI on these keyboards. You'll notice like that top row where F1 through F12, you know, there's little symbols and then there's the little F numbers in the bottom right hand corner. If you want to utilize the F number, like F1, like I just tried to, you need to click on that FN button that's over on the bottom left hand corner between Control and the Windows button, so that you will actually be hitting F1. If you don't, it's going to want to dim your screen, which is obviously not what I wanted to do. So make sure you hit FN and then hit whatever F button you're wanting. And that applies for whenever you need to use an F button. Okay, so I got FN on my keyboard, it's lit up. So I hit F1 and then I click on Autoprefix CSS, and I assume it would apply if anything was needed it, but I guess it doesn't. Okay, I'm going with that. I'm going with the fact that it doesn't. Okay. So that's how you do it. Evidently didn't need it, but that's how you do it. In general, browsers process style properties in the order they're listed. Ignoring those properties they don't recognize or support, so you always want the most current specs listed last. So if you this is for Chrome and this is for Mozilla, so if you were an Internet Explorer, it would ignore this stuff, this WebKit in Mozilla or in Firefox, whatever. Hey, going on. And I'm actually going to stop right there. I don't know how long this video is already, but it's usually longer than what I like to go. And I'm hurting talking. So I want to go ahead and stop this at this point right here. And hopefully this video might help. And we may be using more videos for the rest of the semester. Okay, that's it. Thank you.